Beans. All right. Hey, I got one monitor and I just lost my mouth. What a way to start. Okay. What's up, guys? This is. I have one monitor. It's the best I can do. But welcome back, of course, Dayghost and Milton. This is Haven of Horror. Again, Dayghost, Austin, whatever you want to be called. Appreciate you volunteering to help out with this. And we got a special guest star this week. He won't be coming back, but we got a special guest. No, I'm kidding. So last week, uh, so so last week, Austin and I each decided to pick a movie for the other to watch. I ended up picking Repo the Genetic Opera, and he picked They Live. Uh, Son of a bitch. We're professional. Why isn't my desktop audio getting picked up?
What? Okay.
Oh, they should be able to hear you now.
Okay, good.
Oh, I'm a mod?
I made you a mod since you
Okay.
watched the chat for us.
Cool. I can put Noah on timeout if I want.
Don't you dare. Uh, so that should fix
Just
that
saying, what's
audio
the point of
issue.
having powers if you don't abuse them?
So did you guys know that Zydrate comes in a little glass vial?
A
Oh my
little glass
gosh.
vial?
Yeah. And then Austin
A
ruined it.
little
So
glass vial.
okay, so I took notes in the order that I watched the movies.
Mm.
So I watched Repo first because obviously that's the one I know. Since this is Austin's first viewing, I want to just first get Austin's impressions of Repo the Genetic Opera.
Oh God. Very very strange. Uh, but quite good. I feel like I need to watch it again though, because I had like a wonky first viewing because I had a bit of a rough day. So when I watched it, I was just a little like kind of off. But I enjoyed it when I watched it.
Okay. Okay. And then Milton, what is your kind of what do you feel about Repo? Like, how do you like it?
So it's the first viewing that I had was a few years ago when I was working at a certain place that I'm not going to name for reasons. A friend gave it to me in a DVD. Had to clean it off, but through viewing that, it was definitely not a normal movie because not only are you coming out of the fact that this is a horror movie, but it's also a musical and it's sci-fi. Sometimes the mix of that is always going to be strange. Not it's a good movie, but it's definitely not a conventional one. So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Absolutely. I discovered this movie shortly after it came out. Well, I should say my dad discovered it because the guy that plays Pavi, the one who wears women's faces,
yeah.
he is in an industrial band called Skinny Puppy that my dad is a big fan of. And the director of this was also involved with the Saw films, which me and my dad were big fans of, which I'm going to make Austin watch eventually because we are going to cover those.
Oh no.
So you're talking about a Nivek ogre?
Yes.
No,
I don't. Ogre is what he goes by professionally. I don't know how to pronounce
ogre.
it.
I,
Ask the day ghost here. It's Canadian, so.
Hold on. I will look this up.
yeah, let's blame Austin for everything Canadian.
While he's doing that, and of course, the weirdest thing about this that's also the coolest is how many like talented people they got, people that
Yeah,
like have been in stuff.
yeah. On the flip side, the weirdly untalented people that were also cast for this as well, in the direction that the director took with this one.
Your
I
Paris
mean, I
Hilton.
get yeah, pretty much Paris Hilton is the elephant in the room, but
I
I don't
like her in
hate
this
her.
movie.
So the direction was had to have been decent for her not to be, or at
Hmm.
least for her obnoxious persona to actually be used as an asset in the film.
And I gotta give her props. She has no like shame with this material. She's
Yeah.
embracing it.
Yeah, I'm probably being too harsh on Paris Hilton. I don't know her personally, but you know,
Well, it was weird because she was in that House of Wax remake, which I like quite a bit as well. And then this, and then like nothing else that I know of horror wise. I don't know if she just was done after Repo or.
Hollywood wised up.
well, past the box office earnings of Repo, I would imagine a lot of people were
Yeah.
not exactly encouraged.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I just
So,
found that on here. This movie had a budget of 8.5 million, and it only made 188 thousand and $126.
yeah, you talk about box office bombs. This was a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
no
a
kidding.
shame because this is like weirdness aside, it's just such an original like idea that exists now on film.
Yeah, and you got a lot of support from the author of the stage play. The
Mm.
co-author is the narrator, essentially. You know, the dealer.
Mhm.
I think his name is shoot, I forget. I forget
That's
his
my
name. He's in the
that's my
credits, but sorry,
favorite playwright.
Terrence
Shoot.
Sedonic. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But then of
He's
course
the
you've.
co-author of the stage
Oh,
play.
oh, interesting. I have to look into that.
Yeah.
But you've also got like Alexa Vega, who I think is really good. Anthony Stewart Head, which Milton's gonna make fun of me here for, but Austin knows what I'm gonna say. It's Giles from Buffy.
Well, I
He's
was gonna make fun of you for it.
that's what I
So we were
said.
both coming at you.
Oh
We
wait,
already talked about this,
damn it.
and I already made fun of you for it. So
Yeah. And I have to say, ever since Austin, ever since we watched the pilot on Discord, like I've just been thinking nothing but Buffy. Like I'm pretty sure I'm getting on people's nerves, but it's like it was like watching the show for the first time. But that's a discussion for another day. Um,
yeah, but back to Alexa Vega. I'm
mhm,
surprised how well she does, considering some of, I guess, considering her experience. She was never like a bad actor in my opinion. Just based
mhm,
on the experience that she had before, this is definitely an interesting turn that her career took.
mhm.
And then the unfortunate fallout that it took from the box office failings in this movie.
Yeah.
I We get her in Spy Kids 4, so I
How
guess she wanted to keep.
embarrassing.
So I guess she wanted to keep going with that franchise after being a child star for a while. So
My biggest weak
I
spot,
didn't even know they made a fourth one.
nobody
yeah, I
cared.
know. Not a lot of people knew, but it's there.
So I don't know about you guys, but for me, the biggest weak spot of this movie is basically the bad guy. What's his name? The head of the company.
President or whatever. Yeah.
Roddy Largo,
Yeah,
played by
like
Paul Sorvino. Yeah.
his singing voice is just not good, or at least it just doesn't fit with this material. I don't know which.
The scenes with him suffer a bit in some ways based on the pacing, the stylistic form of this film, where it's not just trying to be a stage play in a movie at the same time, it's also trying to be a comic book too,
Yeah.
or at least take elements of that for transitions between set pieces. Sometimes the comic sections and the actual singing portions actually they overlap on each other unnecessarily, and some information is just duplicated sometimes within the same minute. So that's another weakness of that as well, unfortunately. Um, I can't praise his singing either, unfortunately. He's trying. I actually like his presence as an actor on the set pieces that he's in, but the singing doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's
No.
unfortunate.
Yeah, I had the same thing with the singing. I also maybe it's just because I've like just started watching Buffy recently, but I also found his singing a little weird. But I think that's just because I'm just used to that guy in a different role.
Wait till you get further in Buffy.
Oh God, he's gonna start singing some more.
Yeah. Well, he actually was like was a singer for or bleh. A big part of his career was singing before Buffy. Like there's
Yeah,
videos on
he's a good
YouTube.
singer. It was like whoa,
Yeah.
this is weird.
Well, it's really weird when you're coming from Buffy, like you said, and he's kind of just the father figure, uptight British guy, and in this, he's a fucking monster. Like,
Yeah.
um,
the rock opera genre it's a weird one just by itself. Not
Mhm.
only at that, but there are very few of them. So handling the singing within a rock opera with this is a little. I mean, just there are some other really good songs in this movie. They are still strange because
Mhm.
rock operas are not common,
Yeah.
and it's not a very well tread territory in film.
Well, and this movie soundtrack has been like a mainstay on my Spotify since I got a Spotify account.
Yeah, and there's good direction from the stage play in which a lot of the songs were written, and they work really well for the
I
most part. You know,
I always go
Brian,
back and forth between Legal Assassin, which is Nathan's big intro song, and Zydrate Anatomy, which of course is the Zydrate goes in a little glass vial. I'm not even going to try to pretend that I can say it in rhythm to that song, but as my favorite. Although Mark It Up always gets the most laughs out of me.
yeah, same here. What do you think, Austin? What's your favorite?
I don't know. Probably the little glass vial one because that had that had me laughing.
So basic. How dare
I
you
know.
copy our answers?
I am a basic
At
bitch.
least
What can I say?
at least he remembers this one. We did the
Yeah,
Bye Bye Man last week, and he's just like, I don't know.
look, we shouldn't
Because
even
it was the
remember the
bye
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 Bye Man.
man.
I know
Sorry,
that was
sorry. Don't think it. Don't say it. Good. Go.
Yeah.
Forgotten. Go. Bye.
so
The only
so
thing that I remember from that is the guy drinking the gasoline
gasoline. Yeah.
because I wanted to be him while watching it.
So one of the other my other favorite parts is Bill Moseley in this movie because he's having so much fun. Um,
Bill
as
Mosley's always great.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's really funny because the two main movies I know him from are this and The Devil's Rejects,
Hmm.
which I love that movie a lot. I know Rob Zombie's not really like a popular topic amongst horror fans, but I think that is his best movie.
I mean, it
Uh,
depends on what you're talking about with Rob Zombie, but
yeah,
Yeah.
and I like early Rob Zombie. Like I know his first Halloween remake is kind of 50-50. I fall on the side of liking it, but I also think that was his last good movie. Everything after that has just been like, what are you doing? Stop, please.
Yeah, and I've only seen that House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, so I don't even
Yeah,
know if I could really speak to his filmography as a whole.
yeah. Well, we'll do some Rob Zombie later on. I'm gonna enjoy making you watch some of these movies. Uh,
Oh God,
guys,
yeah,
if Austin quits, it's my fault.
damn straight.
but yeah, the family cast is interesting with this film and how the different sections of like high society degeneracy is portrayed. You kind of get the full gambit with you know Hilton and the brothers with her dad. It's definitely an interesting take that the film goes with even the father just being disenfranchised
Hmm.
with his offspring. It,
Yeah,
it's, a, it's definitely an interesting way to go rather than just portray as a lot of movies that I see where the father is just completely illusioned because in that state you as a father would say, oh, I want to provide for my children, I want to make sure that they have the best life possible. And then of course you see the other side of it where the father like hates his children because it's like, oh no, I've done that and now my children are spoiled to the point of insanity.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that's my favorite thing about this is normally they play the dad as an asshole for not liking his kids, but I can completely understand why this dad doesn't like his kids because they're all nuts.
Yeah, yeah, it's a combination of a, like the double-edged sword of the American dream
Hmm.
and the thought just left my head. Shoot.
See, Milton came here to like analyze this film thematically, and we're just like, yeah, it was fun.
Well, you needed some direction on these podcasts, so you know.
Yeah. But
Anyways,
just
autism, am I right, guys?
No,
but
but I get
just
you.
real quick, since Austin is watching the chat, is anything in the chat about Repo?
Um. Okay, yeah, we got some people in the chat. We got a Bag, a Josh, and a Noah.
Oh, hey
Not a
guys.
bag.
Noah says that Repo is probably more memorable than Bye Bye Man.
It
Well,
is
that's
absolutely more memorable than
Probably,
Bud
yes.
Bye.
that is the coldest take I've ever heard. So yes.
And Bag says he loves Matchbox 20.
What?
Um,
Okay. Hi, Bag. Thanks
Josh
for stopping
says
by.
Rob Zombie's music is pretty cool, and Bag says he loves Matchbox 20.
Is
Okay,
there a
I will
connection with
agree.
Matchbox 20 to the film that I didn't realize? 'Cause
I don't think so. I think Bag's just being
Bag.
Bag.
But in all seriousness, Bag and Josh, thank you guys for stopping by. It's always good to see you.
yeah,
Josh, I agree. I'm a big fan of Rob Zombie's music, at least his early stuff.
I don't think I've ever even heard his music, to be honest.
Y-
It's probably like in his movies, and I just don't remember.
You've had to have
But
heard like Dragula though. That's his like everyone's heard it song.
maybe if I heard it, yeah.
I'll send
Totally.
it to you after the show.
that'll be
Um,
another tangentially related topic with filmmakers and music when we talk about the next one as well.
yeah.
With John Carpenter, certainly.
Oh,
but,
hell
but
yeah.
that'll be a future thing that we'll talk about later.
So
Yeah.
the one of the first notes I wrote down, other than just I love the setup for this movie and just how batshit crazy it is, that if you miss a payment on your organs, they could come repossess them in the
I
most like painful way possible.
I think that's brilliant. They
Mm.
should have gone with the marketing for that even stronger. Well, thing is, I don't think marketing was an issue with this film so much as it just I don't know what happened with the box office, but
Well,
it's a fantastic idea in my opinion. It
I
might be
feel
real one day.
yeah. I feel like they
Hopefully.
threw an 8 million. I think they. Bleh. I feel like they threw $8 million at a movie meant for like I don't know, like me, like a very niche audience. I don't think there was ever a chance that this was going to do well at the box office.
Well, sometimes when you appeal to a niche audience and you market it well enough, when a film specializes in something and does it well, people will recognize it for that, be interested in this genre,
Mm-hmm.
specific example, and go to see it for that reason. So it's
And that's
not
fair.
always a formula for failure.
Well,
Sometimes it is, but it depends on where the lightning strikes. In this
was
instance,
was this a wide release? I didn't
I'm
see
not
this until it was
sure.
on DVD.
Um,
um,
I know it's Lionsgate, and Lionsgate's one of those companies where I'm like, oh, they made this. I
Yeah.
don't know. Not that they
Also,
never put out good
Austin, I
so
stuff.
just noticed your
Oh, it
shirt.
was a
That's
limited
great.
release.
yeah, it
Ah,
was a
okay.
limited release.
Oh,
They
cool.
concurrently did a road show as promotion for the film.
Oh, interesting.
So, and yeah, they did basically a road version of this and actually played it in like several cities. So
Oh,
Because
that'd be super cool.
it's
yeah,
also a super bummer afterwards. You gotta, I can't imagine just putting all that effort in after writing a play and then releasing the film version and then doing the play as promotion for that film version and the film bombs.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
What
it's rough.
one of my favorite moments is towards the beginning. It's the grave robber's first song, where he's trying to be all like stealthy and like steal like the Zydrate from corpses, but he keeps just screaming in the graveyard to grab everyone's attention. It's great.
He punches up because he knows the material like the best and
Oh, he's
it's
so good.
yeah.
Also, I love the look of this film. Some of the like CGI city landscapes are rough, but I like the overall design of it.
It's meant to look like a set piece on a stage play,
Hmm.
which I
Yeah,
also think is a bit of a weakness for the film as well in certain cases, because I think it's trying to be too much at once stylistically. I think,
Yeah.
but that's my opinion, of course. I mean, you two might have different opinions than me on that.
no, I think
But
that makes sense in general. That's kind of just like the movie in a way, because it's trying to do so much at once, even like just with genres, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if anything cinches it, it's the fact that the third act is literally on a stage.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
a
get
Uh,
lot of
certain other yeah,
old people watching.
yeah, you get certain other scenes that are like that as well. I mean, the house itself is a series of stages.
Yeah.
You could say that about a lot of films, though. I don't even know why I made that statement because that's a movie's a set of stages. Yeah, but it is much more obvious in this film than it is usually.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, there's a lot of social satire about like obsession with beauty and genetic perfection, and it gets really on the nose there at the end when they get to the opera, and you got that like fat guy that stands up to sing about how his genes were oppressed.
There's probably commentary about probably some current issues that I'm not going to give names because reasons. But it does go into the idea of being rather frivolous with your money if you're a part of the upper caste, where you can do whatever you want with yourself to
Also, just
create an
Nathan
identity.
Nathan using that guy's body as a puppet to finish one of his songs will always make me laugh. And I
That's a
love
pretty good.
that like it's so thought out that because they play the Repo Man as like a second personality. He disconnects from who he is to do the awful things that he has to do. To the point of the singing voice for the Repo Man is completely different.
I do think that is a better way to handle it because otherwise, the other way you do it is you make a subtle, gradual shift,
Mhm.
and I don't think that works for the pacing of the film. So I think the idea of borderline schizophrenia actually really works for the acting in these musical scenes because you need that fast pacing.
Well,
I
and
think.
we introduced that in the song "Thankless Job," which uh, Austin, since this is your first viewing of it, do you remember that one where he's singing to the guy he's about to cut up about how he has such a thankless job?
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, I got distracted. My uh, Google Chrome crashed, so I
Oof.
lost
Oh
the
no.
stream.
But
But yeah, I remember that song.
and some of the gore effects are kind of low budget, but I that just makes it charming because like I'm a big fan of 70s and 80s horror films, which this kind of reminds me of something almost that would have been made in the 80s, especially with some of the satire.
It's like squid packs. That's for babies. Just just put it in
I
very
hate CG. I hate CGI blood. Like that's Freddy versus Jason is almost ruined by some of that CGI blood they do in that movie, especially like early 2000s.
yeah, you definitely get grindhouse feel from this movie, which is very strange considering it's a budget of $8 million. But even so, uh, yeah,
Yeah, but I mean for the 2000s, that's still pretty small.
sure.
For
In comparison, that is fair. It is still $8 million, but you know,
for comparison, the Child's Play remake was made for I think only 10 million, and
Yeah,
I think
well, yeah. I was thinking of Invisible Man 2, which was 7.
Well,
and
think
I
of the
think
inflation of the Child's Play remake. Think of that now with how that was budgeted.
but
It's
it
got to
just
be.
came out last year. There wouldn't be that much inflation.
Oh,
I would I don't know. I'm not a money expert, but I mean,
maybe take $1 million off or something. But
yeah.
I don't know
And
inflation
I think this
correlates.
movie looks better than the Child's Play remake, at least in certain aspects.
I haven't seen it yet, so I can't compare.
It's
But I had
It's
eh,
seen the
like
original. I
comparing
had seen the
apples
original
to
Child's
oranges.
Play and a few of the sequels. So
yeah. I mean, it's hard to compare that remake to the original because they're doing two very different things. But if I had to pick one, I would go with the original just because I prefer the Chucky that has a personality and is like he's evil because that's what he wants to be, not he's just an AI gone rogue.
See what I like about the Child's Play remake is that they just did their own thing. They were like, let's
Yeah.
not remake the first one like terribly like we do. They just went, let's just do our own thing with this
And
concept.
I will give them all the props for that because that's what I was expecting when they announced it.
Yeah.
you
But
do have to wonder how much of the budget for like both those films was like just set aside for the acting talent that was hired for this, and I guess how much was left for set design and everything else. You do
I
get some good props in this movie as well. I gotta praise some of the costume design for for the budget they had and for the, the scenario that they're working with.
Yeah, now that you mention it, that does make me wonder because mainstream-wise, the biggest name in this movie is probably Paris Hilton
Yeah,
or Alexa Vega.
that is a bizarre thing to think about, but yeah, that is probably true.
Yeah, like the average guy is not gonna know who like Bill Moseley is.
Maybe next to Alexa.
Yeah.
Maybe next to her because depending on when Spy Kids 3 was released.
It's like 05,
mm,
something like that.
think of I guess thinking of the kids that grew up with the original Spy Kids.
Yeah.
And then seeing the films from there, they probably would be old enough that they would be interested in this sort of thing.
Speaking of Paris Hilton, I laugh every time her face falls off at the end. It's great. Like, I don't know much about Paris Hilton, so I'm only going by what I've read about her, and I'm assuming a lot of this is just like a public persona. It astounds me to think that that person agreed to be in this movie.
It could show some self-awareness.
Yeah. Because she is really just playing like a satirized version of her public persona anyway. I don't want to say for herself because I don't know the woman, but so Austin, since like we said, this is your first viewing. Any standout scenes other than Zydrate Anatomy?
Oh, I thought you were gonna make me rank it.
No.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
top.
Rank the scenes. Go ahead, Austin.
Okay, I will rank this film a 9, just like the Bye Bye Man.
No.
I give this film an A out of 5. If anyone gets that reference, you get a trivia brownie point, I guess. I don't know how the internet works.
I was expecting a little bit more, but okay.
The points don't matter, Austin. So,
I mean, trivia brownie points aren't that great.
and if anyone gets a reference that I just referenced, then you'll get 2 brownie points, I guess.
Just aren't great rewards.
No, that
should be like, if you get the reference, you get a PS5.
Oh.
Sure.
That is coming out of his pocket, not mine.
You just inflated our podcast economy. I'm working with some small funds here, and then you promise something that is very difficult to provide.
Well, we won't provide it. We'll just say it was satire, like that old Pepsi commercial where it's like, collect all these tabs, and if you get like however many, you get a fighter jet. And the one kid did, and they were like, "Well, we can't give you a fighter jet."
No,
So we, like,
what we'll
sued them.
do is we'll make a payment plan for acquiring the PS5, and if they don't pay it, we repossess it.
Oh, and then we break their legs.
No,
What?
I mean, so PS5s are organs, right? Is that how that works? I
Yeah.
don't know consoles, so I don't know what that means. They
Well, it's
put it
probably
inside their
more
bodies, right?
important than an organ, I would think.
Okay,
Right,
but
John?
back. What? What is? I don't even know what's happening.
I guess I want to say I want to cut someone,
Okay.
but for other reasons. Never mind.
But back to the movie at hand. Austin, any standout scenes for you just on the one viewing?
Not that's like coming to mind after we were talking about it. I don't know.
Okay, so then this one I am gonna ask you to rank top 5 songs from which you remember, if you can.
Oh God.
Better get a list out so you can see them all.
And you can
Yeah,
pull up a list.
I
I don't expect you to do this from memory. Not on a
Yeah, 'cause
one
I'm
viewing.
kind of to even remember what the songs were.
And then Milton, do you have the chat pulled up as well? I would, but I'm using
For
Boost
for
I
the
do.
feed.
for the
Noah
chat.
says, "Give me a PS5, you frauds."
Oh, Paris Hilton becomes the Joker at the end.
Well, there's that one guy that has like the mask thing that reminded me of
Are you talking?
Joker.
Yeah, you're talking about Pavi.
Yeah.
That's Ogre that we were talking about.
No, we're saying Paris
Oh,
Hilton
okay.
becomes Pavi. That's actually an interesting way to look at it in some ways. To see the direct comparisons between Pavi and Paris Hilton.
Well, I mean, if you remember, because they kind of wrap everything up in the credits,
Yep.
he ends up buying her face and wearing it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And, yeah.
And they really counted on getting a sequel. Like,
They said they either want to make a prequel or a sequel. It's probably not going to happen anymore. I imagine
so
they've probably moved on.
so the people who made this
Yeah,
movie
absolutely.
did do a kind of spiritual sequel, and the fact that it's just the same people working on it. But there is a movie on Prime called The Devil's Carnival. It's only like an hour long.
Oh,
I didn't like it as much. It was just missing kind of that flair. But it is the same people who made this movie, and it's the closest we'll ever get.
I'll just check it out.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I've heard of that. Some I don't know.
yeah. So while Austin is working on his 5 list, what about you, Milton?
Okay, so it's difficult to rank some of them because I'm indecisive of rankings.
Mm-hmm.
I hate top tens and top fives, but I will say some of the 5 favorite songs I've liked. So we have, I think the strongest one that appealed to me first is 21st Century Cure. You get that first. The other 2 songs before then are kind of background. You get Genetic Repo Man, which is the intro. It's fine. I like it more for the visuals it says rather than for the song itself. Personally, I shouldn't go through an exhaustive list. There are a lot of songs in this rock opera, but Mark It Up is also really good. Legal Assassin I will put on my phone every so often and just listen to it. I do like even though there aren't really any English words until the end because I'm an English speaker. I did like Mag's last song. I would have been interested to see more of a Paris Hilton song as well, but I mean, the point of that scene is that
It's
performance is
cringy.
supposed to die real early and be embarrassing. That's the entire point. 17 is also pretty decent. You also get some cameos from some actual artists in that song.
Yeah, Joan Jett shows up in that.
Yep.
Chase the Morning is also really good. You get good back and forth over there. I'm not going to talk about Zydrate Anatomy. We all know Zydrate Anatomy. It's great. I mean, other people can speak more to that, but it is probably the one scene that most people, if they have seen this movie, they know that scene and they know that song. It's a good way to kind of summarize what the movie is about to a certain degree. Minus some other important themes, but mostly that. That's my 5 cents.
I asked for
5
top 5,
cents
and
is
he
a
just
5
goes.
song.
He just goes through and is like, I
Okay.
like this. I like this song. This is what this means. This is what no.
Yeah.
Just give it like a
You
comprehensive
could
breakdown.
rank them, but I don't think that would serve the film very well because each has its purpose in place.
Yeah, I just mean
Me taking this thing way too seriously than I should, honestly, in this rather arbitrary ranking system.
No, I agree. We should not rank it, so I don't have to come up with 5.
But
Zydrate Anatomy gets a 97 out of 97.
let me just say on with 17 at the end when he just smacks her stupid, it's hilarious.
But wait, are we talking about 17?
That's what I said in the song
Okay.
17.
I didn't laugh. I mean, I do now that I've seen the film a few more times, but
Well, yeah, and
no,
I mean,
it did shock me the first time, and I was immersed.
well, I just thought it was funny because she goes on this like 3-minute rant about how she's an adult now because she's 17, and he just smacks her like, no.
You heard it here first, folks. John likes violence against women.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take John's words out of context. Just see.
Austin, you're fired.
Hey,
Okay, where's the hang up button?
No, you're sticking
press is
around.
still pressed,
Nah.
just so you know.
So just to give Austin a little more time because I doubt he has a top 5 yet. Mine number one is Legal Assassin. Number one and two could be switched though, because of course number two is going to be Zydrate Anatomy. Third is Let the Monster Rise, which is the back and forth between Nathan and Shiloh towards the end when she finds out he's the Repo Man. Four is Mark It Up. And then fifth, I'm going to go with 21st Century Cure. And this is just on a purely listening enjoyment level. It's not like how important it is to the story or anything.
Honestly, you can like a lot of songs that Terrence Dunnick is in.
Mm-hmm.
Just like pick those ones, and you can't really be wrong.
Well, and I've discovered I'm a sucker for songs where it has like two singers going back and forth like that, especially like in Let the Monster Rise. Because I legitimately feel bad for Shiloh when she finds out who the Repo Man is. All right, Austin.
Oh God. Okay.
Putting you on the spot. This is your time to present in class.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm gonna half-ass it like like I'm in class. Okay, I'm gonna say 17 because I like abuse of women. Genetic Repo Man because it's like the title. Genetic Emancipation because it reminds me of Harley Quinn.
Oh
And
no,
Zydrate Anatomy. Boom.
he just put Zydrate Anatomy on there because we did.
I like that list.
Top tier list.
It gets a cookie out of a pizza for me.
Heck yeah. That's how it's done.
And then I also really liked the twist where Marnie or no Blind Mag is Shiloh's godmom because it makes you believe that Shiloh does want to get out of the house and get out and live a life because she's got family that she never knew she had out there.
It makes sense for Marnie to have that kind of friend, and then for that friend to still be interested in Shiloh.
Yeah.
It's definitely our Repo Man being very possessive is very in line with the themes of the movie. He's a person whose profession is to repossess things, so he understands the idea of property, and he looks at his daughter as a form of property, but like the most precious property. And
Oh
towards the end of the film, he actually sees her as a person at the end.
yeah. Well, and that's interesting. I never thought about that, the property thing. I always just thought it was he's just a guy that can't let go. Because of what happened with his wife. He stuck in the past and he's stuck where he is. And as a side effect of that, he doesn't want to accept that his daughter is growing up and is going to want to leave.
But you get in Legal Assassin, especially in that scene where the movie is going on, you see a lot of Nathan's property is dedicated to memorializing his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that he sees Marnie in Shiloh really cements the fact that it's like, oh, she is a memorial. She is like these paintings and these holographic pictures that are going around. And I value these things highly, her most highly. She can't leave. She's part of the house.
Yeah. Well, and the guy that I started mentioning this earlier, but we got a little sidetracked. But the guy that plays Nathan, he did a lot of stage stuff too, and he is in a stage play of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I've seen like clips on YouTube. He plays. I've never seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show, so I don't know like the character's name, but he plays the Tim Curry character.
That's
That's
just another episode right there. We could probably dedicate an entire episode to the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Well, and I've never seen it either. I've always wanted to.
But that is definitely something we'd probably do around Halloween time. I am just going to announce this now. We are planning to do Halloween around Halloween time. I don't know if we're.
Yeah.
Well, we've never said anything about it. I don't know.
All year round, but yeah, Halloween is probably the most appropriate for it.
I don't know if we're just gonna do like the original, if we want to do like an original versus remake. We're planning that stuff out, but that is one of the movies that we want to do for Halloween time because I don't know about Austin, but I am really loving the talk show. I'm loving getting to do this, and I have fun every week. And Austin's like, I don't ever want to come back.
Well, I'm contractually obligated now, so I'm stuck.
I hope I've been a good addition, bringing my critical analysis, I guess, to
Bring an actual thought to the show.
We're just joking around about movies and having fun.
Yeah,
So
Noah says there's no other time to do Halloween. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
okay, yeah.
You gotta do Halloween for Halloween.
so Noah, you're coming on the show to talk about Halloween then, right?
Well, no, he's our resident Rocky Horror Picture Show expert, so he'll be here for that.
Okay.
Is cold take an expression? Because I'd like to think that I invented it here.
Is what an expression?
Is what?
Cold take.
Cold take?
As opposed to hot
I've
take.
never heard that before, so maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That or there's some guy in his basement going, I said that first 20 years ago.
It's like meme. It's in just some
Oh
book.
gosh darn it. It's an Urban Dictionary. It was someone uploaded in 2018, so.
Oh, if it's on Urban Dictionary, odds are it's probably a sexual thing.
But it means something different than what I mean, so never mind.
Is it a sexual thing?
It's not actually.
Oh, okay.
Surprisingly, it's not. But no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Noah says he likes the time warp. Time warp is pretty good.
I prefer discussion for a different time, but definitely, yeah, it's wonderful.
Is that a reference to Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I literally know nothing about it.
As someone who has seen Shadowcast and the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a jump to the left and a step to the right.
Okay. Yeah, I literally know nothing about that movie.
It's definitely an interesting watch. Like it or hate it, in some ways I can see some similarities between like Repo the Genetic Opera and Rocky Horror Picture Show, but however loosely in terms of theming, I guess.
Well, it's one of those things where Rocky Horror Picture Show is like the horror musical that everyone knows. So anything that's any kind of like horror musical like this is gonna be compared at least somewhat to that, I feel.
Yeah, well, they reference Rocky Horror Picture Show in the Evil Dead musical.
Oh, okay.
It's definitely an interesting genre with horror, with a lot of these films that we're talking about, because, and also with the next film that we're talking about, horror is not the main draw of these properties, which is definitely interesting to think about when they are mainly part of the horror genre, and that's where you kind of put that stuff in there.
Yeah, I was thinking about it with Repo when I was watching it last night, that it's kind of interesting just the way it fell with both of our picks this week, where it was like, both have the sci-fi elements, both are very, like, have a lot of commentary in them. Like it felt a little like they're not obviously the same movie or anything, but it was like, there's some, like, similarities in what we picked. Yeah, although that's thanks to Noah, because he told me to pick They Live.
Yeah, I was talking with about that some time ago. I think I can't remember who I said to, but it was definitely an interesting pick.
Well, and I picked Repo because I've been meaning to get Austin to watch that. I showed it to Noah, but Austin wasn't there when I did. Which, by the way, around Christmas time we're doing Anna and the Apocalypse because it's one of the only horror like Christmas movies that I know. But I want to do that and Gremlins.
You also have Jack Frost if you ever want to try that one. But no, I'm not. You can. I don't recommend it, but you can.
Not that one.
I can't tell the difference. They're the same movie. Do you know how horrified I was in school when they made us watch that and Michael Keaton started like raping a woman to death in the shower?
Wait, what did you in school? At what part of your education?
Huh? He's just making a joke to point out that the same movie.
Oh, okay. Sorry, flew over my head. I was
It's
thinking about
fine.
Repo the Genetic Opera. Sorry.
Okay, so
It was a very cerebral joke.
before we fully wrap up with this one,
I
because
get
I
it. Don't worry.
we've said quite a bit, but do either of you have anything else to add about Repo?
I mean, where do I start? I guess. I guess it's unfortunate that a movie can get such dedicated promotion and it can fail. It definitely is. 2008 was definitely an interesting time for film. We got a lot of really good stuff from a lot of more publicly known IPs, and then we get this. I would imagine if this sort of thing was released in this market today, it would probably get a lot more recognition.
Yeah,
Of
and
course,
even like if it was just straight to streaming or something like that, now like I feel like it would have gotten a way bigger audience than it did back then.
of course, it probably would have been released by Prime, and it probably would have been a different beast altogether than what we got. But
Hmm.
I say Prime and not Netflix because
Fuck
Netflix is.
Prime will release anything.
I'd rather not, but that's besides the point.
No, you don't want to fuck the company that made Cuties.
Oh.
That
Well,
that is
okay.
that is
To
an
be
interesting
fair,
discussion.
they didn't make that movie. They just grabbed distribution rights from
No,
some
I
French.
know.
I'm just saying.
Thanks for like explaining away my joke.
That's what I'm here
I
for.
have done research into the movie without actually watching the movie, to which I will say I have not seen Cuties, and I'm probably never going to. But the
No,
research around it's interesting
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the author
absolutely.
herself, because the creator of the film herself is like someone who experienced a lot of that.
yeah. I have
But
no
enough
desire
about
to ever see
a
that.
different horror film. So,
Okay, so and we're still kind of figuring out the whole, I guess, thing here, what segments or whatever. But I believe last week we did give Bye Bye Band a rating, so we're gonna stick with that. Starting with Austin, out of 5, what would you rate Repo the Genetic
Well,
Opera?
I already gave it a 9, but I guess if I'm giving it a out of 5, I'm gonna say probably a 4, 3.54 around there. I
Okay.
don't know. I'm weird with ratings because it feels kind of arbitrary in a way, but
Yeah, it's
I
just
don't
a
know.
personal rating of enjoyment.
Yeah,
hmm.
Go ahead, Milton.
If I had to give a rating, I might seem a bit unkind with the rating, but it is honest. I would say a 3 out of 5. I do think it's above average, but I do think some of the technical aspects are a bit wanting sometimes.
That's
It
fair.
has a lot of stuff that appeals to me, and it has some good, theming, and it has some decent writing and back and forth. You get some technical, talent, but some of it suffers. I think it's trying to do too much in some of its style.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it's best to stick with something and then try to utilize that as much as you can without doing too much. The content is relatively simple. You know, don't try to overdraw.
And that's
And
fair.
then Noah gives it a 3.5 out of 4, but it was out of 5, stupid. And Josh says he hates using ratings. So,
That's fair, Josh. And that's fine that you probably were a little harsh on it, because I'm gonna probably be like overly soft on this movie.
oh
I'm
god,
gonna
he's
give
gonna give it a 5.
no, I'm gonna give it a
Go for
4.5.
it.
I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. I feel like this movie was made for me. The songs, the like atmosphere, the style. My biggest complaint is Rati Largo and his obnoxious wannabe opera's voice. The technical issues don't really bother me, but I think that's because I love the B movies that aren't always perfect. And I'm also just not like a filmmaker. Sometimes I don't even notice that stuff. It has to be like really bad for me to notice. Um,
I will say in Josh's defense with the fact that here's the thing. I give it a 3 out of 5. I post that somewhere, people are going to ignore it because it's a 3 out of 5. Despite the fact I would say you absolutely should watch this film. So I can definitely see where Josh is coming from on that. And
Yeah,
and a
that's
lot
why I
more of the
feel
reviewers that I've respected kind of shy away from that sort of hard ranking, and because art is not a standardized test.
yeah. Well, and then with 5, it's like, yeah, exactly. Like 3 out of 5 maybe sounds harsh when you think about it, but it's like not really. Like there's perfectly good movies that I would say are a good like 3 out of 5.
It's better than a 6 out of 10, I suppose, if I had to go with that sort of ranking, or 6.5.
Well, and like I said, this is something we're still kind of hammering out the details.
Mm-hmm.
In a week or two, we could have a completely different. Because I also do kind of like, and I didn't go with this at first just because I didn't want to step on any toes. But I also do kind of just like the way Red Letter Media does it, where they say, would you suggest this to someone?
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
might be something we end up doing instead of a hard like number review in the future.
I've seen an anime reviewer with glass reflection. If you see some of the stuff that he does, he actually puts like a text like at the end or something like that. However you want to do editing, but it gives a good summary of some points as well as recommend or not recommend or how much
I
you
I
recommend.
wouldn't mention anime.
Yeah,
You'll
the
scare Austin
IGN
off.
thing, the pros and cons.
I
9
wouldn't
out of
men-
10.
I wouldn't mention
I
anime.
agree.
You'll scare Austin off.
Hey,
That is true.
hey, honestly, anime has some pretty decent horror flicks.
Yeah, well, good luck
and
getting him to watch them.
and a few good horror things. Anime does not particularly do horror well most of the time, unfortunately, but sometimes it does well. But that's an aside.
I'm a big fan of Hellsing, which is pretty cool.
Well, I don't know about anime, but I like Junji Ito, the manga
Junji
artist.
Ito.
Yeah,
That
Of
might be
course,
something cool to talk about one day.
I credit Junji Ito more for the. I mean, he's the manga artist. The adaptations of his material are not great
that's what I've heard. Yeah, and there's a
because
new one I think coming out, based on Uzumaki, I think title, but I
I'd
could
have
be
to check
wrong.
because it's difficult. I guess getting on a whole tangent about anime adaptation, art adaptation in general, or really just adaptation in general. You can't. It's sometimes not fair to like judge an adaptation too much by its original work. Sometimes it
Mhm.
depends on the context in which you're reviewing
Well,
it.
of course, yeah.
You also get an issue of, I guess, going back to Repo the Genetic Opera. You get an issue of trying to adapt the art style or the format that it's originally in, and trying to put it into a different medium, and that's just a challenge in of itself. You get,
Yeah,
for instance, with Junji Ito, beautiful drawings, incredibly beautiful drawings, like with
it's so
Berserk. If anyone
detailed.
knows that manga as well, you try to adapt that into motion. That it You cannot tell someone to draw that frame by frame. That is insane.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Josh says that he thinks we genuinely love Perfect Blue. I'm not sure what exactly that is, but
I'm
Okay,
he
not
says he
sure what
saw
that
that.
is.
Noah, I know what that is, and it is a fantastic film. And Satoshi Kon was a universal treasure that will be forever missed. And his life was cut criminally short.
You said
It's
that
very
was
very
Josh
sad.
that brought it up.
Yeah, yeah, and he also
Okay.
says that if we did an episode on
Yeah,
Junji Ito, he'd love to join, especially if it's Uzumaki.
yeah.
Well,
You could do a Satoshi Kon like double feature, Perfect Blue and Paprika. I think
Josh,
would be
if
a
I
good
can ever get Austin to watch an anime film, we will think about it.
I mean,
But
I
not to get
examples of
us.
that's not just like a good. Those aren't just good anime films. Those are just fantastic films.
I just like to give Austin crap because he always gives me crap for liking anime.
yeah, you dirty weeb.
But not to get us too far off topic.
Hmm.
So we've discussed Repo. We may come back to it, but we usually try to go for about an hour and a half, and we were a little late today, so just trying to keep
Yeah,
things on the
because of
flow.
my
Right. No,
work.
I get
Sorry.
that.
No, you're good. So the next film is the one that Austin picked. So I'm gonna let him do the introduction since this is his movie or his pick. So Austin, go ahead and tell us about They Live.
Well, we're finally doing a Carpenter film,
Hmm.
which is They Live, which is not one of my favorite Carpenter films, but it's still great. Um, which is all about like aliens that have kind of taken over the upper ends of society, and they're kind of oppressing all the people in secret. And Roddy Piper gets a pair of sunglasses that allows him to see uh, the aliens in disguise and their messages. That's the movie.
So let me just say this further cements my statement that the 80s were the greatest decade for horror because I really liked this movie. We
Got
know
some John Lennon sunglasses over here.
we already knew Austin was an alien. You didn't need to tell us that.
I'm like that old lady that he berates in the grocery store.
So this was my first time seeing this. It had been on my list way before this show was even a thought. Before I even had Austin come on the show as kind of a co-host. I had started watching Carpenter films because obviously Austin is Carpenter's one of your favorite directors. Is he your
Yeah, I'd
favorite
say
or
I go back and forth. He's at least in the top two. It's one.
who's the other?
Well, it's him and Tarantino for me.
Okay, okay.
They're very
So
different directors. It's weird.
yeah,
I mean, I like Tarantino as well. I feel weird about praising Tarantino sometimes because a lot of his style is I have studied a lot of films and I take a lot from other people and I make my own thing kind of out of that. Now, granted, a lot of artists do that. Most, if not all, artists do it now. It's weird though that that is the main draw of his style, but I still love it. So
Yeah. Well, and I'm leaning more towards Carpenter. I think at this point as being my favorite director, but I am a basic bitch, so.
I don't really think that sort of mentality is too critical of that. I honestly would praise Carpenter's films as well. He tries, and he's really brave with a lot of his material.
I will say it.
He was always stuck with a low budget and just did what he could.
Yep.
I will say it was nice to see that he finally got action right. Uh, I, I'm making a joke only slightly. I did like the action in this quite a bit more. But I watched when I was going through a Carpenter phase, because I'd been meaning to watch a lot of his movies. I watched Escape from New York, and that might be my least favorite Carpenter movie because it's fucking boring. And
Might
nothing
be a bit.
happens for most of it.
Might be a bit
I'm
harsh.
over exaggerating a little bit. There were things I liked about it, but just for comedic purposes, I'm overstating how bad I thought it was.
You can't exaggerate if you're just straight up wrong.
I would say that I guess my opinion of Carpenter's films with like Escape from New York and whatnot, it's Carpenter I think does better with the horror genre than he does just with the straight action genre.
Yeah, well, and I
And
think that's this movie's strength is it combines those two, because obviously there is action in this, at least somewhat, but it's minimized. But it doesn't matter that it's minimized because what there is good.
Well, it's more in line with like Big Trouble in Little China, I'd say, where it's not like super actiony, I guess, but like there's action in it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
It's just like a mix of a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you get the big three with like John Carpenter's Kurt Russell films with like Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York. You also have Escape from LA, but most people will reference Escape from New York. And The Thing, which Carpenter did before They Live, and I think he got action pretty right in that movie. So I don't know what you're talking about there, man. But
I was mostly just making a dig at Escape from New York, like,
John's just uncultured swine. He doesn't know anything.
oh. But you mentioned the thing, and Austin's like, can we just get to like the thing and all the other Carpenter movies already?
hey, there's another one for you there. Um,
Oh
Well,
yeah,
sorry,
the thing's
Austin.
really
I
good.
imagine you want to talk about more about They Live, right?
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Let's get into They Live.
I'm seeing past the charade here. I see the
So,
truth. No.
Obey,
Which,
John.
so
which is how that started actually in this film.
Yeah, yeah, because that's like a brand now, which is really weird.
It was street artist, I think. I forget exactly what the artist's name was, but it then, you know, yeah, what you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that whole thing's pretty funny. Well, John, this is your first time watching it, so what were your thoughts on They
I might
Live?
as well.
I liked it quite a bit.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh,
Oh,
interesting.
interesting.
Okay,
Okay.
well, you guys can both give me your first thoughts.
Well, John
So
first. But yeah.
so I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. This might just be like the way my brain is wired because I grew up with these films, but the satire in this is so like in your face, but not in a bad way, that it reminded me of a Romero movie. Because Romero's films, maybe it's debatable whether he intended those to be satirical, but when he is doing satire, it's so like in your face about it, but not in a bad way. But also, I love George Romero movies, at least his zombie films. Kind of iffy on his like non-zombie movies that I've seen. Um, and also like I don't say this often, but the alien faces the first time I saw it kind of freaked me out just with how like unnatural they look in a good way.
Yeah, they're
Um,
really unique designs.
and it's Roddy Piper and Keith David are great. Roddy Piper delivers one of the best one-liners in film history.
Well, my favorite part about that is because he delivers like the famous bubblegum line, and he's got a shotgun in the middle of a crowded bank, and he just like unloads in the bank into the crowd, and he's only hitting the alien. It's
Um,
hilarious.
and one of these days I'm gonna have to make you watch it, but or watch this movie that I'm about to mention. But the guy that ends up selling out to the aliens that they meet back, he's at the beginning of the movie and then he comes back at the end, and this time he's joined the elite. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't remember anyone's names, just the actors' names, but I don't remember this guy's name. But he's in Wishmaster for a few minutes, and he plays this homeless bum that makes a wish on the Wishmaster to the Wishmaster that this pharmacist that he fights with over where he sleeps in the alley will get cancer. And so the Wishmaster grants it and gives the pharmacist every kind of cancer known to man, and it's hilarious. But yeah, we got to watch that movie one of these days because he's a great. And I was like, that's the guy from Wishmaster. It's like one of the only other things I've seen him in.
Yeah. George Buck Flower. So, yeah.
And that movie has that's another movie with a killer cast like Kane Hodder, Robert Englund, Ted Raimi, Tony Todd.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Well, Nick, what was your first impressions of this film?
So
Milton.
no, it's fine. It's fine. It's
Crap.
I'm
fine.
just glad it wasn't me because I knew one of us was gonna do it.
At least
I'm
you're not
just gonna
calling me George.
hang up.
At least you're not calling me George Lucas. So whatever. So Keith David is my favorite actor that I never expect to see whenever I see him. I don't know why that is, but it's it's just one of those things for me. I saw the first performance that I ever experienced from Keith David was when I was playing Halo 2 for the first time, and
Oh,
he
of
has a
course,
voice
yeah.
acting credit as the Arbiter.
Mhm.
So from there, ever so occasionally, I will look at the credits of the film, and I'll see, oh, there's Keith David right there. Oh, okay, cool. Community, sure, why not? Twice.
Yeah,
So
I have that too actually, where like he just shows up in things I watch, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
Keith David's in this. That's cool.
yeah, but just other subtle references. We'll see who catches that one. Um, but yeah, Keith David. So a weird thing that I saw when researching this movie was how much people just dunk on the acting in this film, which I find to be strange in hindsight. Because I can understand at the time why that sort of thing might have been criticized for an '88 release. But today, I can't see it because I'm in a different generation of film viewers.
Hmm.
You have this WWE wrestler, Roddy Piper, come in as essentially a no name to the big screen. People know him from his earlier work as a wrestler, but he's also done a few acting credits here and there with other B movies. Roddy Piper's character is never named inside of the movie. He's credited as Nada, which is a reference to the original short story that was penned, which is what this film is inspired by. Some say based, but it's loose, but it still
Yeah, it's
works
one of
as
those
an
old
visual.
school adaptations where it's more inspired than actually based around a book or a short story.
But yet you get good energy with the cast, and it surprises me in hindsight of how small the cast is, technically speaking, when you put, you know, the acting credits of extras aside. You have a small cast of characters that you're working with,
Mhm.
and they work. They absolutely do. They fulfill the roles that they're supposed to. They carry themselves the way that they're supposed to. Um, in fact, a lot of these characters aren't named, but you remember them. You got George Flowers, the Drifter. He's probably one of the more memorable characters. He doesn't have a name in this movie, but you remember him. So I can't really understand how one could really just, dunk on this acting in this movie. And apparently that was one of the main issues that Agnes has had with this, which I still
Yeah,
find a little bizarre. It's definitely not conventional acting by any stretch of the imagination. It's definitely its own sort of energy that you understand if you go into the behind the scenes. Um,
Hmm.
the fight scene between Keith David and Roddy Piper is a section that was originally intended to be 30 seconds long, and then just going at it with John Carpenter. He said, "Oh," John said, "You know what? Okay, sure. You can have a 5 minute fight scene."
5 minutes. That's being
And,
generous.
and you have Roddy Piper using his experience as a professional wrestler with his choreography skills, working with Keith David.
Mhm.
You have a scene where they are actually punching each other, except for the face and the groin. The other moves are real
Yeah,
in
yeah,
it.
and you get some cool flips and stuff and slams from Roddy Piper. It's like right out of
Well,
wrestling.
It's
well,
it's it's a lot is one of the best fight scenes in cinema.
it was funny because I briefly remember somebody before I started the movie mentioned somebody mentioned the alley scene, but I didn't know what they were talking about. And
I think
I
was it me when I said it's extremely self-indulgent and I love
yes,
it.
yes, and so but I didn't know what you meant obviously because I'd never seen this, and I
Mhm.
thought this movie and that scene ended like three different times,
Yeah,
and then
it
they
just
just got
constantly
back up,
keeps going.
and I was like, this couldn't work, and I should be terribly bored, but I'm having way too much fun.
I think it ends perfectly.
I
I
do
think it's
Oh,
too,
hilarious,
absolutely.
and yeah, I would
and
say
as
that I would say the screen transition is a little strange. I would have tooled
Mhm.
that just a little bit, but otherwise I love it.
and as someone who used to watch wrestling during the post Attitude Era before they went PG-13 or PG whatever, it's been a few years. There one of the moves that Roddy does is a suplex, which is where he just picks him straight up and I lost it at that because you don't often see just straight up wrestling moves in a film like this, and I thought it was so fucking cool.
They directed themselves.
Hmm.
Keith and Roddy.
Yeah,
They did all that themselves. So the fact that they were able to do that sort of thing, it's like you will probably never see that sort of thing ever again in a movie,
yeah.
unfortunately.
No.
Well,
Except for on smaller projects, maybe. But
and you stepped away when I was saying this, but when I was just giving my first impressions of this movie, I think I've mentioned this to Austin before, but I have this running theory that the '80s, like I know we over nostalgize the '80s and stuff like that, and I don't care about any of that, but I think the '80s were like the golden point for horror films because you've got
Golden
like,
point for Carpenter,
well, yeah,
oh, I mean
the
that wasn't
master of
hard.
horror.
Well, he didn't exactly do a lot in the '90s either. So he did a few
see,
things, but yeah.
I
Hmm.
don't know, like I like his horror films. I love The Thing. I love In the Mouth of Madness. But I don't know if I could put them above Craven's horror movies, at least his big ones.
He got a lot of hard hits financially and critically in a lot of his films. Like most of his films are cult classics.
Well, that's what I
Hmm.
was gonna say to you about when you were talking about the acting being criticized. That's just kind of Carpenter's career in general. Not exactly the acting thing, but just being ripped apart by critics.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like the Thing got it, and I don't get it at all.
Well, and I think the thing's critical reception, at least amongst like horror fans and modern audience, or at least modern people who grew up with that movie, that'll always just be a point of confusion. Like, I don't get it. Were we watching the same movie? But we'll talk more about the thing when we do. Uh,
Mhm.
I,
Yeah,
I I'm
yeah.
gonna pull the Austin thing here and keep announcing things, but when we do Carpenter month,
Hmm.
we are gonna do the thing, In the Mouth of Madness,
The Fog,
The Fog,
and what was the fourth one?
Christine.
Christine. That was what we said. That's right.
Okay,
Hmm.
and out of those, I haven't seen The Fog yet. Austin's
Because
gonna
that was gonna
laugh.
be my suggestion, and then Noah was like, "Do they live?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll save The Fog for this Carpenter month."
Because Austin's probably gonna laugh at me for this, but I have seen the remake. I don't remember much of it, but I haven't seen the original.
Well, the remake is one of my favorite Carpenter stories, where because he was working on that film, and then he talked about it. And he was like, "Yeah, I like went to set, said hi, and then I went home."
That's most of his producer credits right there. It's just
Yeah.
Well,
The
and
only part of the story that just isn't accurate is he didn't mention smoking 100 cigarettes in that time.
so we will do that. I think we agreed in March, just because we're already like 2 weeks into February, a week into February. I don't know. I work from home. I never leave the house. I don't know what day it is. Like, um, but yeah, I'm really excited for that. I love the thing, of course. So then, Austin, is just someone who has seen this movie. You're the only one who's seen this movie more than once.
Mhm.
Did you ever wonder why it wasn't Kurt Russell in the main role instead of Roddy Piper?
Well, funny enough, before I watched it, I knew, the bubblegum line, and I always thought it was Kurt Russell. Just like in my head,
Uh-huh.
didn't see the clip. I just knew the line, and I just saw Kurt Russell in my head, where I was like, "Is Kurt Russell's probably the lead of this movie?" And then I
Mhm.
got it, and it was like, "Oh, it's Roddy Piper." But he's also great, so I don't
May he
really
may he
care.
rest in peace.
Yeah.
And I know
Um.
I know you're not really a wrestling guy, but I got to see him not live, but like on TV. He came back for mostly stage perform or like
Oh, cool.
promotions where he would just talk on the mic, and he was great. Like,
Yeah.
the man had charisma second to none.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that's really impressive with this movie is that he is able to give like a pretty decent performance
Yeah.
when he was just like a wrestler, because that wasn't easy, especially at that time. Hulk Hogan wasn't making anything like this.
no, he probably never got a lot of success with like professional wrestlers getting the film. They were always criticized for bad acting because
Mhm.
they take a very different approach because
Absolutely, it was a different set of skills.
they're
Yeah.
essentially larpers, but for sports.
Well, and as someone who has seen like both Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper cut a promotion, Roddy Piper was the better of the two on the mic. Hulk Hogan's entire gimmick was yelling into the mic and going, "Brother." Whereas Roddy could cut a promo and like he knew how to rile a crowd up, he knew how to get them on his side. Hulk Hogan didn't have that. That's why, and I know I'm going on a full like different tangent. I'm sorry, but my
Well, I
point
mean, I
is,
agree. Like Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, and Iron Sheik were also all better than Hulk Hogan at doing that.
yeah, Hulk Hogan just he had the right thing
he
at the right
was
time,
he was the
and
'80s John Cena,
yeah.
one that all the kids loved, but
Although I will say, I think John
not
Cena,
great.
at least in his prime, John Cena was better on the mic than Hogan was.
One I liked John Cena as a kid.
Yeah,
His rap album was my first album, and I don't know if I can say he's better on the mic.
I just mean on talking, not singing.
No, I know.
Um,
But
but
no,
yeah,
Roddy Piper is. I think he's great. I think the reaction to him was very harsh.
hmm
I think he does as well as he does. I think the fact that he was brave enough to ad lib a scene like that,
Hmm.
I'd say he does pretty well. He he runs with the choreography pretty well, honestly, considering all the stuff that he has to go through in that movie.
Yeah. Well, and Noah also says that he says that Halloween is worse acting than They Live, in his opinion. And I mean, I think it probably is higher highs, but definitely lower lows
Yeah.
in
Well,
terms
and
of acting.
with Halloween, and we'll touch on this very briefly because we do have a show planned for that later. But I think I agree with you, Austin. But mostly because I think the only high point of that movie's acting wise is Jamie Lee Curtis.
What's
Ever,
her and Donald Pleasance? Yeah.
oh, yeah, of course, of course. But I just mean of the like teen.
No, absolutely. That's why I think it's probably higher highs but lower lows,
I could
definitely.
gush about Donald Pleasance, but yeah, that's a
I
different
mean,
title.
I like it. But he's the reason to watch the sequels, right? Just his descent into madness as he's forced to come back for each movie.
What did
So
you
with
guys?
this movie, I don't think there's anybody. Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
Oh, I was going to go into asking about the technical aspects of this film, but your thought first before we
Oh, I was
get
just
to
gonna
that.
say that I don't think there's anybody that's really a weak point in this movie, as opposed to like Halloween. I can definitely look at actors and be like, I may be liking this, but that actor's not great.
Well, and this is obviously a more experienced Carpenter.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you're getting like late '80s Carpenters, so he's done quite a few films that are already recognized as cult classics. Well,
Yeah, he's been
that would
churning
recognize
out
as cult
masterpieces.
classics by the time of today, but you know what I mean.
So I
Mhm.
have I have to say, and then we'll get to the technical aspects.
Hmm.
But I felt really bad because obviously I'm taking notes while watching this, which I probably should have watched this twice, but I didn't have the time.
I
So
wanted to, I didn't
I
have time.
That was how
completely
I felt about
missed
Repo. Yeah,
the fact that Keith David died in this movie. And
it's very
so
sudden.
It goes really quickly, so it's easy to miss if you're looking away. So
so when you
Yeah,
get to the ending, which is great, and I don't know what it is, but I have a thing about movies where the protagonist dies. And if you came here not looking for spoilers from a movie from 1988, sorry about you. It's over 20 years old. You're gonna get spoiled. But I always love a movie that has the guts to kill its protagonist. They don't feel like we do that enough.
but I think with this kind of story, like absolutely, it makes sense.
Hmm
I mean, for
Uh,
'80s horror, it depends on what you're working with. I would say for John Carpenter, it's par for the course, but I mean,
Yeah, because
John
that's
Carpenter is
also
definitely not
the
par for the
thing.
course of other filmmaking anyway. So
yeah.
Hmm.
yeah.
Oh no, Austin, didn't you play the video game on the PS2?
Don't even say it. No.
But yeah, so I
God
was
damn
really
it.
confused at the end, when uh Piper dies. I was like, well, what happened to Keith David? Like he just disappeared.
Yeah, the first time when I first watched it, when Keith David dies and the woman turns on them, like blew my mind. I was just like, whoa.
So that irritated me because, so I saw them find her, and then she's acting really weird, right? And I'm like, why is he trusting her? The last time they met, she threw him out of her apartment.
Which is awesome.
It
The way
is.
she like sidesteps him.
So my analysis of that, interesting enough, there are two ways you can look at this whole thing with her character. You can believe that either she's like everybody else to a certain extent. She doesn't see the aliens. She doesn't know. And then she gets into a scary situation because someone has held her at gunpoint, comes into her house. She, of course, reacts probably as other people would, and reacts rather bravely. Of course, this is the protagonist of the film we're talking about. He gets a bottle hit on his head, so we look at it differently as an audience. But from her perspective, there's that. You see the film, and then she is seduced, and probably after the second scene that we see her in, and then we see there. The other way you can view it is that she was always part of the elite. She always knew what was going on. She's a plant. She acted as a plant, and that's how she's been the whole time, which
Well,
is a very different way to view it. But I think you could view it either way, and it still works,
Yeah,
which
and
is
she
interesting
does
to me.
have a very nice place, which is something that a lot of people get when they work with the aliens. So I can definitely see that read.
Yeah.
And I think the read on the second one might be a bit stronger because she claims that her radio station has nothing to do with aliens in the second scene that she's in. So I think the second read is a bit stronger.
Yeah, no,
But
that was kind of where I was leaning the second viewing.
yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to watch this again, and not while I'm taking notes, so I don't miss things like a major character death. My first thing that I saw with Keith David was, of course, Gargoyles as a kid, uh, which
I
is a
need to watch
wonderful
that.
show. I need to go back and finish it because it's on Disney Plus. And I know everybody like hates nostalgia pandering, but like I love Disney Plus that has all these shows that like I grew up on, and it's nice to just revisit, stuff you grew up on every once in a while.
Well, nostalgia pandering. Funny you mentioned that. That's a component of this movie with theming in some ways, and
hmm
just a general criticism of Reaganomics and social commentary with this movie. Certainly. Plus, I mean, a lot of the casting that John Carpenter does with his movies, to a certain extent, is based off of nostalgia, with how people have viewed his films and how he will recast certain people. And,
Yeah.
yeah. Not,
Well,
not to take away from your point. Sorry for
No, you're fine.
interrupting.
No, you brought it back on topic. You that's good.
Just to go back to the alley fight, because I was looking at my notes. Um, I also lost it when Roddy got kneed in the nuts like 5 times by Keith David.
Well, my favorite part of that is Roddy Piper tries to punch him in the crotch, and he's like, "You dirty motherfucker!" And like 3 minutes later, he's like kneeing him repeatedly in the crotch. It's great.
So this came out what, like 3 years after the thing, if even
It
that?
was a little bit longer than that, I think. If I'm
6 years maybe. 'Cause
okay.
this is '88.
Looking at his filmography, I'd like to check here. Okay, so the thing is released in '82. They Live is released in '88, so we have 6 years.
6 years.
Oh, yeah.
Since the thing, he did Christine in '83, Starman in '84, Big
I
Trouble
haven't
in Little
seen
China in
Starman.
'86, and Prince of Darkness in '87. He did a lot of stuff during this time, and he was working really quickly with these low budget movies.
You know what?
And
Just oh, sorry. Go ahead, Finn.
and They Live actually broke the bank on opening weekend. It was actually one of the top hits
Oh
in the
wow.
box office, actually.
So I just had this thought about Carpenter films we're gonna do. If we're gonna do The Thing and In the Mouth of Madness, let's swap out like Christine for Prince of Darkness and just do the whole Apocalypse trilogy.
Oh, it could, yeah.
Yeah.
Why I put in Christine because I know you hate that movie. So
I don't hate it. I just don't love it. It's kind of in the middle. But I've only
Well,
seen it once.
you guys watch Dark Star. That's something I'd be interested in seeing. That would be his first big movie.
Oh, okay.
yeah, I own it, but I haven't seen it yet.
But you own Dark Star? Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I was going through his filmography and buying everything a few months ago. I still haven't watched a lot of the stuff I picked up, but there's like a lot of just like random movies I'd never even heard of that I picked up.
Okay. What is it? Physical media or is it digital?
No, it's physical. Unless I'm getting it confused, I'm pretty sure.
Is it
It's
you
like I
get
gotta
like
go
a
check now.
what you got like the red letter media situation? Someone handed you a VHS or something.
Okay, I might be wrong. If it is it not like um around anymore? Am I wrong about this?
This is Dark Star that was released in 1974. It was John Carpenter's first big movie.
He's like, shit, now I gotta go look at my Blu-ray collection.
I'm just looking at my Amazon to see. Let's see this Dark Star.
While he's doing that,
Yep, no, it is. Yeah, no,
oh,
I do own it on Blu-ray.
interesting.
Oh wow, that's
Uh,
pretty cool.
I,
Because I'm like, am I just getting it confused with Starman? Am I, or like, am I just being dumb. I don't know.
I appreciate how this movie kept me on my toes. Because I thought it was we were just gonna stick with the sunglasses, and I know this is kind of like a minor detail, but something I found interesting is they realized like that would be so impractical at a certain after a certain point, so they come up with the contacts and upgrade to that, so they don't have to worry about whether or not they can see them, because as far as you know, they can always see them now.
Yeah, it's definitely like going into the technical aspects. Like the first time I saw the sunglasses scene, I don't know if I attribute this to like color blindness because I am slightly colorblind. But the first time Roddy puts on the sunglasses, I didn't even notice the change the first time until I had to watch it later to see, oh, it's in black and white, and I was able to recognize that because I could see that later. But uh, but yeah, definitely it's interesting. John Carpenter probably knew, yeah, I can't film too much of these sets in black and white and change everything in these scenes. I can only do that for like a couple of days and then do it with these few scenes because you can imagine just the insanity of trying to completely adapt that sort of style to like every single set design and set piece in the
Yeah.
freaking movie because he likes urban landscapes. He does that a lot in his movies. I mean, imagine taking like the style of Escape from New York and trying to adapt, the black and white sunglasses thing to that thing. Just he was dangerously close to doing that with this movie, and
Mhm.
I think he does enough that you get the sense of it and you assume what's happening towards the later portion of the movie, so you don't need to see that sort of thing in the forefront.
Yeah, well, and it probably helps with. I'm assuming that this is like another lower budgeted film.
It is.
Probably a lot easier to do it that way.
Yeah.
I think it's a good way to do that sort of technical aspect on a lower budget. I think that's
Mhm.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
On
no,
the
he's very smart about how he handles that stuff.
On the flip side, you got that CGI saucer there in that one scene, and that is atrocious. And I'm not going to even praise John Carpenter about that. That was tough to watch as
Is
someone from this
well,
generation seeing that.
it makes me wonder if that was one of the things he was like forced to do. Because and Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, because I very much like confer to you in all things Carpenter. But wasn't he forced to do like the flying saucer scene in the thing as well?
Um, yeah, I'm not sure. My mind's going blank on that. I don't remember. So
Um,
some Carpenter fan I am. Oh,
why do I even have you on this show?
I don't know.
Because we're
Nah,
being Canadian.
I
yeah.
keep calling my agent, telling him to get me off of this.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I have not seen enough Carpenter movies. I've probably almost seen enough to do a top 10 now, but I've seen most of the ones I was interested in. I don't really want to see like Escape
Dark
from
Star.
Dark Star, Escape from LA. Although I do kind of want to see Escape from LA because I've heard it's really bad and it has Bruce Campbell in it. Um,
I've only seen one scene from that film, and it's the most awesome scene ever, which is the Bangkok Rules scene.
I still need
Well,
to see
I guess
it.
not in
Yeah.
the surfing scene, but the Bangkok Rules scene
Yep.
is perfect.
but I would say if I could put this in a top, if I would put this on a Carpenter list of films I've seen, it'd probably be right under Big Trouble in Little China, which would be probably third on a top five.
That's one I need to see. I'm a bit lacking my Carpenter experience as well, but I'm trying to amend that.
Well,
He
that's
has,
my favorite one. Is Big Trouble in Little China.
A lot
and
of
yet he
people
won't,
reference that movie constantly, so
and yet he
I'm not
won't watch
surprised.
anime, and it's just a live action anime. I don't get it.
I don't know about
You don't
that.
you don't have much of an excuse there, man. Come on.
Um,
I'm
for
pulling up my
me,
Carpenter list to see where this ranks.
for me, he
So
still hasn't outdone In the Mouth of Madness. I think that movie's brilliant.
That's another one
Um,
I need to see. And I think I've seen 3 Carpenter films, and this would be my
mm,
third right here.
well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're always welcome to join us on a show anytime you're available. Um, I'm gonna regret that, but no.
I'll bring you on point, guys. And get on the call.
Well,
um,
this is the one where we've most been on topic, so
yeah. Well, I
that
mean,
is the thing.
we're
The thing.
we're getting better,
Mhm.
and I don't know about you, Austin, but I have been thinking at some point maybe once we've gotten a few episodes and are down our done,
Mhm.
revisiting like the Predator, because I think we could do better than what we did. We
We
that
should
was our
do a revision show where you just talk about all the things we didn't talk about.
that
No,
was
a remaster.
Yeah, exactly.
because that was our first
See, I was a
episode.
very bad person when I shot John in cold blood, so I think he should shoot me first, and then I shoot him. I just feel like that would make me more likable.
That was our first episode together, and we honestly we just kind of goofed off for the whole episode. Uh,
Yeah, but so
Well, and I got my
formaldehyde face. I don't know, but
that whole scene where he's just parading that old woman in the
it's
grocery
so
store
good.
is
it's like
so great.
it's like you get kind of like subdued film like right up to that point, and then it's just a straight B movie from there, and it's an awesome transition because Roddy Piper just he goes all out from that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
And I
it's
like
it's
certain
amazing.
things, like he sees that one cop that's just a normal guy. I like that it's not like just all the police are all these aliens. Like it's a little bit more subtle than just everybody's evil.
It's
Not that this
handled.
movie is super subtle, but like
Right.
It's it's
It's oh
in
sorry.
your face intelligent. Like it knows it's beating you over the head with the message, but it's like it's smart about it and it knows it.
Yeah, it's the idea where, yes, the rich have essentially alienated themselves so much from us that they are actually aliens is very interesting.
mhm,
Um, and you also get the fact of, yeah, they control everything. And a main thing about that is communication and mobility, which a lot of people who, and you start in the beginning of this movie, they don't have a lot of avenues of communication. You get that very obvious with how the television set functions in that scene, and you don't get a lot of mobility. You get immediately you know, the homeless camp that you see. The horror of that situation is basically pronounced when you see the bulldozer come in and all their homes are destroyed. It's like the one portion of any sort of mobility of going back and forth to this place is now completely destroyed. But with that situation, you could have a scene where just the police come in and that's it, and they just attack people. But dedicating some scenes to the actual destruction of property really cements that idea of really contrasting the poor and the rich towards the beginning and the end, and you get the bookend scenes right there, especially with the teleporter that you see towards the end of the movie. And
mhm.
I think that's one of the greatest important points about technical filmmaking. You got to bookend the technical stuff here. If you find the theme to be very important, you need the scenes to like work with that as well, with what the characters are doing inside of it.
Absolutely. Um, Another question for our Carpenter expert here. Was this scored by Carpenter as well?
I meant to look for it in the credits. I know he at least does the theme. I'm assuming he probably scored the film.
Because I
Carpenter
really
has
liked that. I really liked that theme. I'm obviously not as big of a Carpenter fan as you, especially his music. I find it hit or miss. Um, but I thought it
That's
worked
fair.
really.
yeah, it
I
was
thought it worked well
composed.
in this film.
Yeah, the music for the film was composed by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Carpenter has almost always had, based on my research of the films, he's almost always had an influence in the music of his films. And when
Yeah.
I run past his films, like up to the most recent what was this, a Halloween remake?
Yeah, it's a sequel to the original, but he does the music for it.
Yeah, in between his films and that long hiatus that he took, he was just doing music
Mhm.
for a
Hmm.
while.
Well, and
Yeah, well, and I know
his
even for stuff like The Thing, because he doesn't score it, but he did the theme to it, so he at least does the main theme.
Mm.
and his like remix or whatever you want to call it of the main Halloween theme for 2018. That song,
His
that
entire
version,
score for that
fu-
film is
it's so
is
good.
wonderful. Yeah.
It's especially good to realize low budget filmmaking and a person who has a passion for music who also understands the time to not fill a scene with music sometimes,
Yeah,
which I like in how it deals in certain sections of this movie. Because you
Well,
can always get tempted as a musical guy to put like music in every scene that you have,
mhm.
and then you completely miss the point of silence sometimes to let a scene chew a different way.
Yeah. Well, and from what I understand, Carpenter's thoughts on film score is more so that it should just kind of be there and it shouldn't distract from the overall film, which like
I
definitely
agree.
makes sense for that. Yeah.
Speaking of horror films, have you guys seen Suicide Squad?
Uh, I wish I hadn't.
One of my go-to horror
I think you
films.
broke my brain for a second. I was just like,
One of my
That's a real cerebral joke right there.
one of my go-to films for score, like being in your face, but it enhances the movie is the original Dawn of the Dead,
Hmm.
because it has this completely like inappropriate soundtrack to it. That's like techno. Oz, do you remember when we watched it? Do you remember the soundtrack at all?
no, but I'm not one, not a type of person that really like thinks about score while I'm watching something, unless it's like I don't know, more like if
Unless
it's
it's
something like
Reba the Genetic Opera, then you definitely do.
It's a
exactly.
musical. It's got a score done by like some European like synth pop band called Goblin, and it does
Oh yeah, I
not
remember you telling me about about
it
that.
does not you would not think it would fit with a movie about a bunch of people trapped in a mall at the end of the world, but it does somehow. Well, and Romero gets really good with sound design, like in Day of the Dead, because you got that one where the guy's being like ripped apart, and I don't know how they did it, but they simulate like his vocal cords being torn apart, and it makes me shudder every time because,
Hmm.
which we will cover those at one point.
Oh, okay. Noah says the track at the end of Dawn of the Dead is funny, and the second I saw that, I was like, "Yep, I can hear it."
The like elevator.
Yeah, where the guy like has his big hero moment where he charges through all the zombies. Okay, I remember that now.
It shouldn't work, but somehow it does.
Say, Austin, speaking of body horror, concerning this movie, the design of the aliens.
Mhm.
What do you know about the design concerning how that was generated? Because it's definitely a very interesting look. Because in terms of aliens specifically, Carpenter was involved a bit with Star Wars, like very early on with George Lucas, actually.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't
then
know
just briefly, like George
that. Yeah.
sought him out for a little bit, and you're getting that influence like from like 77 as well as other
Mhm.
sci-fi stuff, and then you come here in 88 and you see a very different sort of alien.
Yeah, it's like nothing
Yeah,
I've seen in anything else. The design for the alien in this movie.
yeah, I'd say without this design, it probably would not be a horror film.
Yeah, no,
Well, and
absolutely. Well, and it could have very easily been like a really generic alien, because like you could have done anything really. It could have just been like the gray, tall gray men.
It's a borderline zombie look, which
yeah,
Yeah,
also goes in the idea of zombies. Of yeah, they're
and they got those
assimilating
just
people.
popping eyes where it's very distinct.
Stealth zombies. That's an interesting concept. You don't see that a lot.
no, but
For
I have
sure, yeah.
seen zombies that can run on walls. Does that count?
No.
I've watched some really bad zombie movies. My
I'm
first,
very sorry for you, man. I'm sorry.
I
Well, if
sat
we
through
want to
the
talk about the aliens, we got to talk about the greatest scene of all time, which Noah mentioned in the comments the final scene, which is the like woman having sex, and she looks down, and it's one of those aliens. That's just how it ends. It just
Yeah.
cuts to black.
It's like, what's wrong?
It's so
My
great.
my first thought about the design was, well, first they made me uncomfortable, like in a good way, because not a lot
Yeah.
of movies. I don't know. I've always felt kind of like dead inside because movies don't like scare me. Like everybody's always going on about how this freaked them out and that freaked them out, and I'm just like, I don't know. I mean,
I guess we're just desensitized to this sort of thing.
yeah, like so that this movie could actually kind of freak me out with the design was awesome. But my first thought, and maybe this was because of the black and white, was he was trying to emulate like the 50s B movie.
Well, that was a bit of the design with this movie.
And
Doing
Austin just
research
lost
that was
it when
done
I
by
said I'm dead inside. He's just like,
Like,
Mate,
that's just me altogether. Yeah.
yeah, but the
yeah.
black and white kind of enhances it to a certain degree,
Mhm.
the sense
Oh,
of
it
color,
looks great. Yeah.
Well, and then
which is
there's like,
interesting to bring it up with how it is at the end, and they don't look as scary. In fact, they look rather vulnerable,
They look
which
goofy.
is a good thing because that's actually how the tone of the film is supposed to be at the end.
yeah. Well, and I think you can look at it too. Like he puts on the glasses and he sees that the world is more black and white than he kind of realized. Where it's there's these aliens that are kind of the bad guys, and then there's like the people who are being controlled by them.
Mhm. Well, and I think this there's two categories for me when it comes to great horror. It either needs to be dumb fun, like say Evil Dead 2. Like I love that movie, but let's be honest, it's dumb fun. Or something like this where it's using the horror to talk about real issues, and this is like peak 80s, making fun of the American uh, greed and Reaganomics and
Probably just the idea of the American dream in general.
yeah.
Um, you get the idea of Roddy Piper's. I'm going to call him Nada because I should, because that's who he is. Yeah, Nada, nothing, actually has like faith in the American people and in the system despite his tragedy.
Hmm.
And then you get that sort of contrast with Keith David's character Frank, who is already very jaded to the idea, and he's very cynical.
Hmm.
And then you
Yeah,
kind
their
of get a
scene
bit
where
of
they
a
talk
you
about
get a
that's
bit of
great.
a role reversal when like there's leverage over Frank to conform, and not has no there's no leverage over him, despite the fact that he's married. Um,
Hmm.
which is a set design thing where it's like where Roddy Piper refused to take his wedding ring off during the set of the film. But I think it adds actually an interesting component to his character.
Well, and
Yeah, for sure.
it gives him an extra layer of motivation to keep going, keep trying.
It has like ever present loyalty with the wedding band.
Hmm. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this is obviously uh this is this is talking about some of the same issues RoboCop did, where it's make poking fun at and calling out how stupid we were in the 80s. Um,
It is the overly consumerist culture. You get that in Wonder Woman '84 as well, but I think it does it better in
we
this
don't
film.
we don't talk about that movie here, but obviously this has kind of a more optimistic message about where we can go as a people than something like RoboCop does. Because whereas RoboCop is using the satire as just background for the story of a man, versus machine, this is very much we have a chance now to fix how fucked up everything is. Because now they know, and the aliens are vulnerable. At least that was my read on that ending.
Wall Street bets, GameStop stocks. I mean, I
No,
thought of that
obey.
immediately when I thought of that immediately when I was watching this film. It's weird how
Well, and
these
it's
events have coincided.
and it's funny
Yeah, that
because
is very
this I
funny. Yeah,
feel I feel like this movie's still relevant. Um,
absolutely. Yeah,
and it's what, like 30 years
nothing
later.
changes.
Well,
War
the more
war
things
never
change,
changes.
the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
People are just like self fulfilling this cycle of over dependency and consumerism. just in different ways. The social pendulum will swing back and forth between left and right throughout the decades, but you get the same kind of people. Just they trade values back and forth.
Yeah.
It's like we're not evolving at all.
Devolving more like, but that's a discussion for another channel. Well, it is nearing 1:30. We actually went for almost 2 hours, I think.
Makes sense
So
though. We had 2 films this time.
well, and the both of them had a little bit to talk about. And honestly, I'm kind of thinking the 2 film thing might be a good idea going forward. It gives us more variety. We're not trying to talk about one movie for an hour and a half. Um, so we're gonna start wrapping up, but first, Nick, would you watch this movie again? We're gonna try this rating, see if it holds up, if it
So
works better than just a number.
out of 5, I would say it's hard because you can't like rate a low budget film on the same basis as you would a high budget film. It's like a different beast. So
Yeah.
I guess in terms of low budget films, mm,
We don't necessarily need to rate it. We're just doing if you would watch it again.
I'm going. So I'll give the rating first, and I'll say that. Actually, yes, absolutely, I would see this film again. I would absolutely recommend this film to other people. Maybe I was between a 4 and a 4.5, so I'm going to say a 4.25. Because I do think that there are certain technical things where you didn't have to like copy and paste like gun effects, especially in the last scene. I think the last scene was a bit rushed in terms of choreography with and the effects of what they did with the gunplay in that movie in that section. I think you could have done a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
um, with when Roddy Piper and Keith David are on scene, because you get alternating sections of where gun you see barrel fire, and then you see it, and then you keep seeing the same shot that they did, and they just like copy and paste it over that to kind of simulate it. But I think it's too obvious, unfortunately. I think it's an obvious cheating is something that I can't praise, unfortunately. I'll praise unobvious cheating and illusion, but in this case, I don't think it worked. Just as one example.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I don't even feel like I need to ask this, but Austin, would you watch this again?
No, this is my last time. Fuck this movie. I
What a
wish I
twist!
didn't. I wish I didn't pick it.
What a twist! All right, and then since we're still doing the rating thing, what would you give it out of 5?
So first, I'm just gonna say Noah put in. He says 3.5 out of 5, same as Repo. I'm gonna say probably a 4 out of 5.
What did you give Repo? You gave it what, a 3.5?
I think 3.5. I said, yeah.
Okay,
I think it's a
so
4 out of 5 or something like that.
Yeah, I think I said like 3.54, like
Something like
so
that.
they're
something like that.
they're about even. Okay,
He'll give it a 3.75.
so I would
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
watch this
exactly.
again, and I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. So for next week, one of the movies I'm thinking of tackling is George Romero's Land of the Dead, because it tackles a lot of the same themes as They Live, and it's just as subtle about them. Just using zombies instead of aliens. But let me know, Austin, if that's not something you can get easily access to, and then I'll find something else. Is there
Yeah,
a
well, I can always try to rent it if I have to.
Okay, well, I just didn't want you to have to spend like too much or anything for just a talk show.
Yeah,
um,
fair enough. I'll let you know.
is there a film you would like to talk about next week?
Um, hmm, I'm probably gonna have to think about it. So,
No, I need it. I need it now.
okay, we're gonna do Human Centipede, the whole trilogy next
Ah,
week.
no.
No. Oh,
No, if you need to take some time, you can just let me know in comment.
so,
Um,
way to Canadian the end of this podcast, Austin.
so at the risk of overexerting ourselves, Nick, if you're to come back next week, what would you like us to talk about?
That is an excellent question and worth great consideration. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you, but I would definitely like to be here again. And thank you for having me on. This was awesome.
Yeah, I
No,
had a
you
lot of
brought
fun.
some much needed order to this show, so it was
Au-
great.
Austin and I are just like unorganized chaos. But yeah,
Exactly.
both movies this week, great picks. Um, we're gonna have to find a better like bad movie next time we do a bad movie, Austin.
Oh, that should be easy to find.
You
That should
know,
be really
that's what I thought when I said let's do a bad movie, but then I spent like a week trying to figure out a bad movie.
well, yeah,
I
because
was,
like I can see that as well. Because you have to think of okay, what aspects of bad filmmaking do I want to address, and how do I get? Because
well, clearly none of that mattered because I picked the Bye Bye Man, which is the most uninteresting
right,
movie.
yeah.
It's one of the most memorable films I've ever seen in my life.
No, it's like I think of like that one song that has like "Bye Bye" in it. I keep forgetting. Is it Backstreet Boys?
Oh, bye, bye,
It's
bye. Yeah.
it's NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye. That was
NSYNC.
my first CD as a kid.
Oh
Showing
God.
showing my age there a little bit because that CD just came out when I got it.
uh,
I discovered Disturbed a few years later and never went back.
good choice.
Um,
Backstreet Boys, Disturbed. I don't know. I can't pick.
No, he put on a pair of sunglasses and you realize, what NSYNC was actually saying.
Oh yeah, just obey, obey, obey. It's not as catchy.
It's consume, consume, consume. But,
Oh,
but
okay. I must have
yeah.
got a different copy. It was the radio edit.
Okay, but yeah, guys, next week, provided that everyone here can get a copy, we'll do Land of the Dead. I don't know if we'll get to all three films if all three of us show up next week, just because I mean, two films took us 2 hours.
yeah, probably best just a double feature idea. We shouldn't make it like a watch party situation. Looking at
Well,
certain people
we're
there.
we're in a group chat. You guys can brainstorm and come up with a second movie. Um,
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I'm perfectly happy to sit out the decision making if you want to pick one at Milton.
Austin, you're the co-host. You have to make some of the decisions.
No, I'm just here because I signed a
No,
bad contract.
Austin, you realize this is our third episode that we've done.
Yeah, see, you're the Wanda and I'm the Vision. I'm just stuck here. This is your world.
Wait, this is supposed
Wait,
to
then
be his
what?
episode 4, though. What's going on? What's going on with that?
What do you
Oh,
mean?
John did one episode before I was on it, so this is my third one.
Who
His
was on that
fourth.
show with you, John?
What? My buddy Kyle, he and I started it, and then he was like, "Nope, I'm out." And then I wanted to ask Austin, but I also get like anxious when I have to ask somebody something, and so I was just like, "Hey, I got this podcast thing going." He's like, "I can help you out," and I was like, "Deal."
No, that's fair.
Um, the one of the other projects, Austin, I would like to tackle this month, probably after next week's episode. That be next week is 5, so probably 6, probably like the last one in February.
Mhm.
Is maybe trying to do an Evil Dead 2 commentary.
When I mentioned doing Candyman for because it's Black History Month or whatever.
Okay, so how's this sound? Candyman and Land of the Dead.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I haven't seen either, so both will be new to me.
Giving you some culture, you cultureless swine.
All right.
Okay.
I will say, if
That sounded much funnier in my
so,
as
if
most
I
jokes do.
if I might propose an ending transition, perhaps we should do some plugs. That guy is Subject 879 on Twitch. Watch his content. He does some awesome gameplay videos on his stuff. Definitely recommend a watch for his videos. Industry.
You pointed the wrong way, but for me it's like up
Well,
there.
okay. Well, I'm looking at this on Discord here, so it's like it's
Way to make it
and
awkward, Austin.
Sorry, this way, right?
Yeah.
There you go. You got it.
And subscribe to this guy's YouTube channel. He makes funny like shorts and stuff. I only watched like a half of one of your videos and I didn't get it. So
Oh God, which video was it?
you were like promoting this cord that was unbreakable or something.
Oh, the supercharger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
whatever's
remember
like
that one.
featured on your I clicked on your channel to make you a moderator because I needed the link because YouTube has the stupidest like mod ad. You have to add their URL. You can't just type in the channel name.
Oh yeah, yeah. YouTube's stupid.
Well, we've known that for a while.
And then
Yeah.
check out Miltonmanthing here. He plays mostly you've been playing just older Knights of the Old Republic, right?
Yeah, I'll probably get back to some of the other stuff, but I'm making it. You know, I'm feeling it out. Any more followers, guys? Please. Can I eBay some more?
Well, at least John didn't watch it and go, "Oh, this is embarrassing." Turn it off halfway through. I'm just glad it wasn't a more embarrassing video.
All right, so yeah, next week, Land of the Dead, Candyman. I'm excited to show. I'm assuming. Have you, Nick? Have you seen either of those?
No, I've heard of them, definitely.
Okay,
But I have
so
not
I'll
seen
be the
them.
only one who has seen both of them.
That's
You
very
know what?
interesting.
Let's save Candyman because I have a plan for that. The last week, so we're gonna postpone the Evil Dead 2 commentary because you just gave me an idea. The last Wednesday in February, because I think that'll be episode 6, right? We'll do Hellraiser and Candyman since they're both Clive Barker things.
So we'll still think of another one for next
So
time.
we need something for next time. So we'll brainstorm on that and then I'll announce it on Twitter.
Pick another horror disaster flick, maybe.
They're all disaster flicks.
No, but you know what I mean.
We can do disaster movie.
That's not a
My
horror
favorite
movie.
film. Oh, it
Not
felt
that.
pretty horrific.
Not that. The existential horror is it's a different.
You know how scared I was when Iron Man showed up and he's like, "I am Iron Man," and then he gets crushed by a cow. Like,
I couldn't get past like.
How
the
do you
first few
remember
minutes of
that?
movie. How did you
Well,
get that far? That movie is just terrible through and through.
I
Well,
mean,
most of them are terrible.
I was like 12 when that came out, so I went and seen it in theaters. That's
again,
my
if you were
embarrassing
12, that
story.
means I was like 1. So
I am not 10 years older than you.
Oh man.
But yeah, follow me on Twitter, subject879. I will post whatever we decide the second movie is on there as soon as these two yahoos decide.
follow me on MySpace. I'll be one of your 13 friends or whatever. However MySpace worked.
Subscribe to Geekvolution on YouTube. So Daddy will like her stuff.
Yeah, you can also see me in Geekvolution.
But yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys, and we will talk at you next Wednesday.